Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with the Dark Shadows video, guys, for the month of June. I'm going to start these Dark Shadows videos off with some book discussions. And I think I did this prior, but I really wanted to go back and talk about two books I really read and enjoyed. Sorry. Number one, the first one I'm covering is Dark Shadows, the Salem Branch, written by Laura Parker. And the other book I'll be covering is by Laura Parker as well. And it's a Dark Shadows book. So, depending on which cover of the book you own, there are two distinct covers. One cover has Jonathan Fritz's face prominent on the cover, and you notice there's some lettering beneath the book where it says this inspired the Dark Shadows motion picture, and what it's meaning is the 2012 movie. Now I'm going to get into that by the end of this video. The other book, I don't think it says that on the cover. If I'm mistaken, please let me know. I don't think it does. I know it says it on the one cover, so that's the one I read. That cover. Um, this is about a lot of things. The one thing I love that this book gets into is the Salem witch trials, and really why they're happening too. I mean, Laura Parker really dives deep into the Salem witch trials with this story. And as you're reading this story, you're sort of wondering, okay, what does that time period and the Salem witch trials have to do with the Collins family? A lot. And you learned that Amadeus Collins was one of the judges during the Salem witch trials. And is this sort of taking the Judah Zachary route? Not quite. I do think, could you interpret it that it is a bit, but I don't feel it's taking that route. If anything, what this is really getting into is how greedy, wealthy men wanted land that wasn't theirs, and they were going to persecute anybody who owned that land or who had rights to that land by accusing them of witchcraft and by having people come forward and saying those people were witches, even if they weren't. Hell be damned. They did not care. They were going to get that property by any means. This is, we're going to come to know, and there's a point in the book Barnabas is going to make, and he's right. And I'm not trying to jump. Barnabas makes a point in the book that years later you could be wrong. And what he knows is that the Salem witch trials were indeed a witch hunt. They were wrong. These people were being wrongfully persecuted. And that's a point Barnabas is calling attention to one of the judges in the case, not his ancestor, but another judge. And Jonathan Frid does use his character's actual. He does say, "I'm Barnabas Collins," even though it was a time before Barnabas existed, because he saw no harm in using the Collins name here, and he was right to do so. And I love how so. This book obviously also gets into time travel, which I'm going to get into here in a bit, but primarily you're getting two stories really that are going to connect together, and it's really well done. You're getting a story about a woman who is living in the past during those times when people were being wrongfully put on trial and executed. I mean, that's what this was. Wrong. It wasn't so much a trial because they were already convicted in the judge's mind. Say they're guilty no matter what. We're just going to say they're guilty, even if they're not. And that's something the book really premises too. That this wasn't a law. There was no. The trials in themselves were a joke. The Salem branch, if you will, was a joke. And I'm not meaning the book. I'm meaning the branch that would investigate the witches. They weren't really investigating, and their investigating methods were cruel and really unresolved. I mean, you were basically killing somebody who, you know, wrongfully, and that's the damnedest thing. So this book really dives deep into that, and it does a really good job of it. I love this story. Then you're getting another story in the present day, in the 1970s, where the old house has burnt down. Now, if that sounds familiar to people, it's because in real life, the house that they use for the backdrop in the series, the old house, that house, it was, yes, A real house, and B, it burned down in the late 60s, mind you. And it's funny, Laura sort of uses that as a subplot in her story, where, or a part of her plot, really, where the new owner, is like, I hear rumors that they burned down the Collins family burned down the man. And Barnabas is like, that's an awful rumor. No one really, no. This girl named Antoinette buys the house. That's right. She buys the house from the Collins family. They need money. I believe, if I'm pretty sure she buys the house. Again, I'm going off memory, so. And you might think, well, she's going to build a whole new house. She's not going to build it exactly the way it was. It's funny, remember when Barnabas came out of the coffin, he picks up the old house, he put it like it was in 1795. Well, guess what Antoinette does? Not only does she build the house exactly how it looked in 1795 on the outside, but on the inside as well. And this causes Barnabas to sort of raise his eyebrow, his calling senses to England, like, wait a second here. How would you know what this house looked like in 17? Well, I found some old floor plans. Well, can I see those floor plans? Well, I don't have them right now. Oh, how convenient. So he starts to suspect that this woman is Angelique, just posing as another name. She sort of looks like Laura Parker in a sense. She's supposed to look like Angelique, so. And that's what Barnabas suspects. Barnabas suspects that this is just Angelique. Come on, and guess what? It's not. That's the beautiful part. You also have Quentin in this story, and he plays a sort of a role in this, where him and the girl start dating, but also Barnabas is interested in Antoinette too. So you have sort of the Collins males sort of vocally jousting each other. And is Barnabas a vampire in this story? No, but he for whatever reason thinks he is, and there's sort of hints that he still might be, that he's lingering between vampirism and not. He's out during the day, so we know he's not a vampire. But there's times he doesn't see his reflection, so he's sort of like, what's going on with me? And I'll get into that too. Again, this is a really well driven story, and here's again, I'll get to the movie thing at the end, so I'm going to get to the overall plot here. So Barnabas and Antoinette begin talking, and it's more, even though Barnabas is really interested in her, it's more of a, I don't want to say necessarily friendship, but a mutual understanding between the two, that she's trying to find out about her ancestor. And the girl I said about, I forget her name, that was in the past, that's that girl's ancestor. That's her mother or grandmother, I believe. Here, Barnabas and Antoinette go to Salem. They go to Salem, and they end up going back in time together. And this is where Barnabas is jousting with this other judge. And he even points out the fallacy of his own ancestor, Amadeus Collins. He goes, Amadeus could have an agenda in this. And he goes, perhaps he could, but that doesn't disprove the claims that this woman's a witch. And so, but Barnabas makes some good solid points. Again, this book is really, really good. I love it. It's really enjoyable. So, the woman, the girl does have a baby, but she still dies. Yeah, but she curses the judges and the people. So you could sort of say it's sort of Judah Zachary-esque, but not quite. With this, Barnabas and Antoinette, they make it back. Also, Barnabas gets shot by a hippie. Him and now here's where I'm going to get into the 2012 movie. You'll see on the cover of this book, this movie inspired the 2012 Dark Shadows movie. Again, I'm not somebody who completely knocks the 2012 movie, but let me say this. To say this book inspired that movie, it's more of an insult to that book. That book, there's so much in this book, so much material. It's great. They're all to me, this book should have been that movie instead of what they made. I mean, that's how good this book is. So, at least in my view, I know some people are going to disagree with that. Or like I said prior, I've said this a while back ago. If if it had been me, if I'd have been in charge, I'd have just tore up that script and said, "Yeah, Miss Parker, Laura Parker, yes, here's a blank sheet of paper. You write the movie however you think it should be, and then we'll go with that." Because Laura Parker could outright that hack that they did hire, blindfolded, upside. She could outright the person who they did hire. Let me just say that. And this book is proof, and really the next book I'm going to review is proof too. So Barnabas gets shot. There's been some interaction between Barnabas and some hippies, and the one guy is mad at Barnabas because he feels that Barnabas called the cops on them because they were staying on the Collins estate, when in fact it was Roger who called the cops. And this guy who gets arrested, who also shoots Barnabas, so Barnabas is dying in a sense. I mean, he's dying, and the guy who shot Barnabas is going to kill the Collins family. Well, someone kills him, and Barnabas finds him all drained of his blood. He knows he didn't do it, so he runs into his old pal, Dr. Julia Hoffman, who has been around in this story. And it turns out, and he hasn't been seeing Julia during the day. It turns out Julia's been using her blood to treat Barnabas's vampirism. But in the same sense, she's been absorbing his DNA. She's now a vampire. She bites him, and it turns Barnabas back into a vampire. It's an amazing story. I love this story. It's really deep. Now, I said about, this book, it says it inspired the 2012 movie. Did it? I would argue no. But here's the thing. Does the 2012 movie take moments from this book? Yes. Okay, so there's a moment in this book where David Collins is being given McDonald's French fries by one of the hippies. Okay, so in the movie you see a McDonald's sign in the 2012 Dark Shadows movie. I know that might seem like a stretch, but that's where they're sort of getting that from. That, hey, instead of French fries, they show the McDonald's sign, right? Okay, also in the 2012 movie, Barnabas kills a bunch of the hippies. Well, I just said in the book, the hippies were arrested. There's the difference. I mean, and now Julia turns into a vampire, right? In the 2012 movie, what happens to Julia? She's a vampire. So but she's already a vampire before Barnabas bites her. She's been using Barnabas's DNA. So they sort of do take parts from the book, but to say the book inspired the movie, I don't see that. I mean, the 2012 movie took parts from the book. It took moments and put them in the movie. But to say it inspired the 2012 movie is a stretch. I mean, it really is. Now, does it get into witchcraft? Does the 2012... Now, this is where some people will say, see, it gets into witchcraft. Let me say this. Though the 2012 movie gets into witchcraft and somewhat of the ideology of it, Dark Shadows of Salem branch really dives deep into witchcraft, the ideology of it, and who was actually persecuted wrongfully. So you have people being, again, wrongfully persecuted. So, again, the book's a 10, but I can't sit here and tell you, hey, that book inspired that movie. I can't. I mean, I've seen the movie up and down, and I've read this book twice. And listen, the book's amazing. I will leave a link where you can go get this book, and you should go get this book and read it. It is an amazing read from beginning to end. It really is. Laura Parker builds and builds and builds this story all the way, and then the payoff is amazing. So the book's a 10 to me. My big, am I mad that they put that? That not mad. I don't see that. Like, look, we know that there are books that get turned into movies. That isn't the case here. It's not like they took this book and turned it into a movie. They did not do that. Did they take moments from this book and put it into the movie? Yes, that they did. But they also took some familiarity with parts of the series and used its characters too. Again, the 2012 movie, I've discussed it here on this channel, and I have a feeling I'm going to have to discuss it again after this. So it's not something I mind doing. So I'll probably discuss all three. You know what? I'll try. I don't know if I want to do all three movies in one video with by myself because that's tasking. So I think I'll just do the 2012 movie, but I'll do maybe all three movies individually. Again, I'll do a revisit of all three. It gives me an excuse to watch all three. Not that I need one. Don't tell Jolie. Go buy Dark Shadows of Salem Branch. The book is recommended. I mean, it is a beautifully written book. Here's my favorite character. Antoinette is actually my favorite character. Anytime you take a new character and you really put some deep seated roots into a character and build a new character, I enjoy that the most. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the OG characters they put in this story. You have Roger, you have Quentin, you have Barnabas, you have Elizabeth, you have David. You have those characters in this story, but I really love Antoinette. She really does steals this book in many ways. Also, the character in the past. I forget that character's name, but I know she's related to Antoinette in a way. So, guys, Dark Shadows of Salem Branch. Link is in the description. Go read that story. Really, 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 really good.